Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Maria Casillas, joined here by Cody Sizemore. And Cody and I, before we hit record today, he was telling me something that I was like, you know what? That reminds me about something. So there's something going on in your life, Cody, that it has kind of made you rethink some of the way that you, should we say, market your business. And I know that it's not super comfortable for you. So I thought, you know what? We haven't talked on this program in a while about the idea of stretching your comfort zone. Now, I know we've kind of used it euphemistically over the last probably few months, and we have done some diving deep into it. But oftentimes I'll say this, that a lot of times people talk about getting out of your comfort zone. And we here at New Money Habits and at the Financial Coaches Podcast, we believe more strongly in stretching that comfort zone, because getting out of it implies a couple of things. One, it implies that if you are uncomfortable, or that if you're comfortable doing something, you're not, actually growing. And that's not necessarily true. But it also feels so out of whack that we tend to just not do it at all. And so that's the other piece of that. And when we talk about stretching your comfort zone, that's ultimately what we do as human beings anyway. I mean, like a baby who starts to crawl, they first scoot on their tummies, right? And then after that, they're able to get up on all fours, and then they can move. And sometimes they fall down and then they get back up. And eventually crawling feels really comfortable to them. And then walking feels comfortable to them. So it's not that they're getting out of their comfort zone. They're just stretching it. And then they become more and more comfortable with more things. And as we become adults, we don't do that quite as naturally anymore. We overthink things, I think. And then we go into, well, if this isn't comfortable, I got to get out of it. And so that's why we here think that just the idea of stretching that comfort zone is important. So I would like, if you wouldn't mind, Cody, just sharing with our audience a little bit today, what is going on in your business that kind of made you go, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And yet I know I want the results from what that could bring. Mm-hmm. And so you have decided that you're willing to stretch that comfort zone.
Yeah. So before I get into that, I want to just say something about the whole idea of stretching your comfort zone.
Please. Yes.
I was talking to a client the other day, and kind of along the same line of thinking. And I was talking about the idea of expansion, right? Mm-hmm. So for her, I gave the analogy that she has set up this wall of protection around herself. And because of that, she's afraid to, take a risk or whatever it might be. And, obviously taking no risk is the biggest risk of all kind of thing, right? Yeah. So I kind of explained to her, I'm like, you have this white picket fence around your home, and that's your protection kind of thing. And it's good enough to keep the neighborhood dogs out. But, you still might be having those 13-year-old kids hopping over that fence and messing up your lawn and all this kinds of stuff, right? And I was like, I'm not going to tell you to go outside of that fence because, obviously you have those walls up for a reason, because it's a protection thing that happened to her earlier in her life for what she went through. But what I am going to say is, let's think about expanding it. And instead of having it be a white picket fence around your home, maybe we think about expanding it into, this is an extreme example, but something like the Great Wall of China, to where it's dude, you know how big that Great Wall of China is? It's 13,000 miles. And, because of that thing has been there for thousands of years to provide protection for one country. But also it's big enough that one country has been able to capture all the resources, start these dynasties, have this rich history, great economy, all these different types of things, because they were able to expand that wall. That wall is still there to protect them, but they expanded it, right? So that's kind of the same line of thinking of stretching is also expansion as well.
Okay, that's interesting. That is not the direction I thought you were going with that. So I'm intrigued, actually.
Well,
I was thinking that you were going to have her widen or expand the area that she was living in, but still remain protected. I didn't realize you were talking about lengthening the actual fence itself. Interesting.
Well, it's a little bit of both, and I bring that example up because that's exactly the approach I'm taking with this thing that I'm going to talk to you about today.
Okay, perfect. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, for those of you who've been listening for a long time, you know that I'm very much involved with social media marketing and stuff like that. And up until this point, for the last almost 5 years now, a lot of my social media has been on Facebook and Instagram through photos or, just written kind of posts and stuff like that. And that's worked really, really well. But I also recognize and have noticed the trends of our society and social media as a whole. And it's really starting to get away from the written posts and the pictured post and more so trending towards the video kind of posts. And that's what people consume more of. They enjoy it more. And that's just where the world is heading, right? So for a long time, I didn't want to do that for a number of reasons. One is because I never really did it before. So I wasn't super comfortable with it. Number two is that I also know that it's just a lot more work. You can type up a quick written status and it will take you, 30 seconds, maybe a couple minutes. But, filming a video, thinking about the ideas, making sure it's a good hook, making sure it's captivating, editing, all that kinds of stuff, it takes a lot of time, so just work in general. And then on top of that too, I was rocking an iPhone 8 for a long time. And my camera was broken on it on the front, so I couldn't do a lot of just general production that I needed. And I recently got a new phone, so once I got the new phone, I was like, okay, that excuse is out the window now, right?
And you use that as a business expense, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So with all that being said, the idea of me stretching my comfort zone is getting into video production in short form kind of structure for both Instagram Reels, but primarily TikTok. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts recently about just marketing and business growth and all these types of things. And a common trend that I saw was people talking about the power of TikTok, which I know about the power of TikTok because I'm on TikTok every day just consuming. And it's always been in the back of my head. And there was one podcast I was listening to where they talked about how right now, in this moment, TikTok is like a gold rush. In the sense that if you get into it and you start putting out content, right now there's a short window of time, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, whatever, that you can really make TikTok be something that completely changes your life. And I've seen that for other people. I know that that's completely true. But even some of the stuff that they were talking about, now they're in like a product business and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different for someone like ourselves who are in a service business. But they said that through TikTok last year, they made $500 million just through TikTok. And they're
that's crazy.
That's what they mean by gold rush. And, and not even just monetarily speaking, but also just being able to get your word out there as well. And to have you be known, because TikTok in particular, of all the social media platforms, TikTok does do the best job at pushing out organic content to the masses. Way more. You could throw out a post on TikTok as just your average Joe, and you'd get way more views than on Instagram, Facebook, anything like that, YouTube, stuff like that, right? But because it is growing at such a fast pace, naturally the ads are going to follow suit, much how Facebook was too. Because at one point, Facebook was like that as well. The organic was great, and now it's shifted to it's really not there very much. So now is the time to do this and to build this organic reach so that you can build your following, you can build your community, And if you wait too long, you're going to miss the window. So that's what I decided to do over the last week and a half. And so much so that I even hired a TikTok marketing coach for $2,500. And he's coming over literally as soon as we wrap up this podcast episode to brainstorm different content ideas, film, talk about editing, talk about, different strategies on when to post, how to post, what to say, all that kinds of stuff. So I'm taking it very seriously.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. I mean, I think, so many questions come to mind for me, and I don't expect you to answer any of them. I won't even ask most of them, but I am curious, once you've done this for a little bit, is this something that you are interested in kind of sharing with our audience as to what kind of results you're seeing, and not giving away the secret sauce to any of it, but just kind of like, one of my questions, for example, is how does that even get monetized? And for somebody who sells a product and then says that they got $500 million or whatever it was, is that just from selling the product? Do they get monetized through, people watching a certain number of views? Again, don't answer the questions, but these are some of the ones that come up for me. And I will tell you that oh my gosh, it's probably been 2 years ago now, where I actually created a TikTok account specifically to do what you are talking about, and 100% walked away from it. And I'm like, just because of all the things that you said, it's just so overwhelming and I don't even know where I'd start. And so I am encouraged to hear that you aren't doing this on your own, that you actually went out and got some help, because we literally just had a guest on last week, and we were talking about, how when things get so overwhelming, we don't even know where to start. And so then we don't start. And so now, cat's out of the bag, I was talking about myself along with other people, that I do get stuck in that sometimes as well. So it's really cool that you're not getting stuck there. I think that's great. And I'll let you answer yes or no. Is that something you're actually willing to share, a few months down the line, once you've kind of tried this out and see if it actually is worth whatever, you're believing it to be worth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
As always, I'm an open book.
Yes, I appreciate that.
I don't feel super comfortable doing it now because I'm not by any means an expert.
Of course, but, get it.
Mr. Beast, I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Beast.
I have, yes, I've heard of him. I'm not familiar with him.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
I stayed off of TikTok. I'll tell you real quick.
He's not even a TikTok guy.
Okay, but I've heard of him. Guy. Okay. I very much like our last guest, Cody. Don't do much on social media. Yeah. And I even recently just stopped being on Facebook too. I didn't delete my account or anything, but I don't have it on my phone, and I don't really engage there. There's just so much blech that I don't want to have to engage with. So if and when I do something like this, it will be specifically for the reasons that you just discussed. Mm-hmm. So I'm not familiar with a lot of people, but I have heard of Mr. Beast.
Okay. So Mr. Beast is the biggest YouTuber in the world. Okay. He actually just came out with a new show on Amazon Prime, Prime Video, called Beast Games. And he gave away the largest grand prize in a game show in the world in history, which was originally $5 million. But there was a twist and turn in the show, and actually turned into $10 million.
Oh, nice.
So you should watch his videos. He's incredible. If you watch Prime Video,
I don't.
Well, subscribe to Prime Video for a week and just binge his show, and I guarantee you'll be like, this is the coolest show in the world.
Okay.
But he's the biggest YouTuber. He's 26 years old. I think that he's worth $1 billion now. Started with nothing. And, I listened to a couple podcast episodes from him as well, and he talks about, do 100 videos for 100 days, and you're probably going to suck in all 100. All 100. Mm-hmm. But that first 100 videos is so important so that you can understand and learn about who you are, what you enjoy, what resonates, what works, what doesn't, all this kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I bring this whole thing up because that's something to where it's maybe after I post my 100th video, I would have a little bit more knowledge and experience to talk about this a little bit deeper, right?
Yeah, when you suck a little bit less.
Yeah, exactly.
No, actually, that's good advice. I'm just teasing.
Yeah. And I will say, I've been posting for like the last like week or so, maybe a little bit longer. And even within that first week, the video that I put out yesterday is like so much better than the first one I put out. And I actually think it's pretty good content. But I know that can grow, so shameless plug. If you're interested in watching my content or following me or watching it for inspiration for your own content, you can follow me on TikTok. And my username is just Cody.Sizemore. Really simple. Cody.Sizemore. But to answer your question about how do you monetize it, there's a lot of ways they can monetize it.
And you don't have to answer that today. It's okay.
No, it's cool.
Unless you want to. Okay. All right. Yeah, sure.
So there's multiple ways, and these are just the ways that I'm aware of. I'm sure that there's more. But you can and do get paid based off of reviews. And I think that there's something called the TikTok Creator Club, something like that, to where like for every 1,000 views you get on a video, you get X amount of dollars or something like that, right? So for example, like if you were to have a video that went viral and it got like 1 million views or something like that, you could probably make like 20 grand off of one video just from the views kind of thing. So that's one way that you can make money. Another way is, obviously if you gain traction, you build your community, your followers, start to go up. You can start doing brand partnerships. So, something like I'll just throw this one out there just because something like Rocket Money kind of thing, like, make a video that's talking about, you have no idea how many subscriptions you have, blah, blah, blah. Here's a really good tool to use to find out your subscriptions and to cancel them. They'll pay you to, post for their company. That's another way to do that. And then another way would be through something like TikTok Shop, which is essentially like Facebook Marketplace or Amazon kind of thing, but just in the platform of TikTok. And that could be something to where it's like, if you have your own tools or resources that you want to sell people, you can do it through there. Or you could even do like a branding thing. Like, you could make t-shirts, or you could do this, you could do that, and start selling things through TikTok Shop as well.
Okay. And they must take a cut of that. And that's why they,
it's just like Amazon, they'll take a percentage and, then you get your cut and
sure. Yeah.
That's the end of it.
But it's free to play. So that's kind of a nice thing as well. So, they'll take a cut, but only when you get paid is my point for saying that. Okay. Well, this is exciting. I'm actually excited to see what you do with it. I know for myself, and maybe I'm going to be speaking for, some of the negative minds that are listening to us today. It just sometimes feels so overwhelming. Like you're a tiny, tiny little fish in this giant ocean of aspiring influencers, if you will. And I'll tell you, I have zero desire to be an influencer. I do love the idea of being like a thought leader, like actually bringing something new. But then there's also like, there's really nothing new. There's just new spins and stuff. So the creative mind of me is, I would love to be able to do that. But it just sometimes feels like whatever you put out today is obsolete in 14 minutes. And so all of that work that you put into that, like you have to really be dedicated to continuing to put stuff out there. So on one hand, it's encouraging because even if the first 100 videos suck, you kind of assume that those will be obsolete pretty soon. And so no one's going to really see them anymore. I'm guessing. I don't really know. But then the flip side of that is, okay, so when you do the 101st and 102nd and how many people actually go viral and how, like, I would just want to know, I think you said, when did you say it? Was it last week when you said, maybe it was just when we were talking actually, when you said no risk is the greatest risk, right? I don't even think we were recording when you and I said that. But that actually is so true. It's almost like a bumper sticker that should be put out there, that the idea that taking zero risk is actually the biggest risk in the world. And so I certainly don't mean to sound like that. But I just, sometimes when time is precious and you have to know, like, where do you put some of that time? How much how much will come back, even if it's not monetarily, when you put all that time and effort into recording, producing, splicing, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I will tell you that even over the last week, there have been some videos that I've made that from time of thinking about it to filming it to editing it to posting it, it might take me like 30 or 45 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So what do you use to edit?
Something on my phone called CapCut.
Okay.
Yeah. However, I will say I made a 3-minute long video yesterday and posted it yesterday, basically just explaining like what the debt snowball is and how it works and stuff like that. That took me 2 hours for a 3-minute video.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, so, but the thing the way I view this, Maria, is right now, like, I'm posting, I only have like 200 followers on there because it's brand new. And the videos I've been posting have been getting pretty much anywhere between like 300 to 500 views per post, which for TikTok is actually pretty low. So I recognize that and I accept that now, but I also have this viewpoint to where it's like, I'm going to attack this with the same type of ferocity. I don't even know if that's the right word. As if I had 100,000 followers, right? Because I know that if I do that, and I stay consistent with it every single day for, a year kind of thing, I have a hard time believing that I'm still going to be getting 300 to 500 views.
Yeah,
I have a hard time believing that I'm still going to have 200 followers. I have a hard time believing that this is not going to work because that's not how things work.
Right. Yep. I agree with that. I agree. Yeah. And I'm really glad that you brought up what video you did that took you 2 hours. That was 3 minutes, because I will, again, I'm just going to be the cynic in the crowd. I'm just playing a role. I really believe in everything you're doing. This debt snowball, so not new. Like,
right. There are people don't know about it.
Right. But what I can tell you where like that the cynical mind would go, like there are a bajillion people out there who are talking about this thing, and maybe part of that's that this is the world that we're in. So we think that there's a bajillion people who are talking about it, but we literally just had that conversation with Zoe last week where we brought up something that we bring up all the time, and she's actually in the field and she's very well, like she said, I've read all of the books, I've dug in, and she still had not heard about like Profit First, for example. And sometimes we forget that. And I think that if I were the cynic in me was trying to figure out, what do I talk about? I would almost think that I need to come up with something nuanced or something that's just, not been done before. And what you just said was, dude, I just took 2 hours to create a video that was 3 minutes long on something that has been done a bajillion times. And what we're hoping is that the millions of people who are following you, I'm talking as if it's happening, right? Either hadn't heard it somewhere else, or they hadn't been in the right spot to listen to it, or they hadn't had it land for them the way it's landing by you. And that's what we're ultimately trying to go for here.
Yeah, and even those simple things such as like the debt snowball, to where to us it's like, that's like 101 kind of thing, right? Like everybody knows that, right? Even on my end, I remember the first time I heard about debt snowball, I had no idea what it was. And the reason I had no idea what it was is because I really didn't pay attention to this world. I wasn't super in tune with my money. It wasn't until I made that conscious decision, okay, I'm going to invest and I'm going to learn about money, that it actually came to me. And for us as financial coaches, that's primarily our clientele, is like people who weren't taught about money, who don't really know about money, and they're just learning this stuff for the first time. So the simplest things for us might be the most groundbreaking thing for the person that we're serving.
Yeah. Can I ask another question of you? I'm sure our audience wants to know. What is your ultimate, I don't want to say end game, because that's not really what it is. What is your ultimate goal maybe for for what this looks like for you. What I'm really trying to get at is, are you hoping to generate more clients that become one-to-one for you? Are you hoping that this is more of a like a passive income type thing? It's obviously not passive in the sense that you're not working because you got to do 2 hours worth of work for a 3-minute video. But I think those are probably the two main things that I'm trying to distinguish between. Are you hoping that people follow you in the event that then they also want to then work with you? Or are you really kind of hoping that this is just where they go and dip their toes and get some information and you're able to monetize it through the platform and not necessarily devote more of your time? Because it seems to me that there are still a certain number of hours in any given day. Mm-hmm. I don't think you've been able to change that. But, and if you're dedicating more and more time to content creation, then you'd have a little bit less time for one-on-one. So I think that's what I'm trying to grapple with in my mind as we talk about this.
Yeah. So the short answer is both.
Okay.
The real end game is it comes down to one word, and it would be visibility. I just want to get in front of more people. Okay. And whether that means that I just give value to people and they do me the service of just dropping me a follow or liking my video or watching the video in its entirety. Cool. That's great. All of those things help with everything, right? With the whole TikTok kind of thing. At the same time, if it turns into them reaching out and then they become a client, great. That's awesome too. But my big thing is like, you can only do so much with Facebook and Instagram organically. And I want to invest myself into another vehicle that can pour gasoline on that fire and just say, hey, like you're doing things a little bit differently in the sense of how you put out the content, being video versus, text or photo, but you're still putting out the same value, but it's going to reach more people. Right. So if that turns into something to where it's, I get a flood of new clients and stuff like that, then cool. I can hire a media team to film a video with me for 10 minutes and then I can have them edit it.
Right. Yeah.
So I can spend time with my clients. If it means something that, I get paid in that quote unquote passive way because of the views or whatever it might be, or the brand partnerships, great. That's cool. But my big thing is just visibility. I just want more people to know about me. I want people to know more about money in general. I want people to know more about how they can improve their lives, not just financially, but also their marriage, their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health, all these types of things. And that's what it really boils down to, is that one word is just visibility.
Okay. And I appreciate that. I love that you use that word. As you were talking, I heard visibility, obviously, because you said that word. I heard credibility. And I also heard rippling impact. And so it seems like those are the things that you're really after with something like this.
Yep. Yep. And all the financial stuff that comes with it is just bonus points.
Icing on the cake. Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, this is exciting. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see where it leads, and I'm excited for our audience to, hear some of the details a little bit after you've done this and kind of see what it was. And yeah, let's go get that gold rush, Cody. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll say a few things as we close. Number one, again, follow me on TikTok if you'd like. I'll throw the handle, or, my tag, whatever you want to call it, in the show notes. So it'd be really easy to find me there. And then beyond that, we also just want to say thank you for listening too. Whether it be the first time that you're listening, the 100th time you're listening. I talked to someone earlier this week who said that they recently found us like 2 months ago, and they've listened to 50 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, people like that, we just really appreciate, and we hope that you continue to listen. And if you want to connect with us to bounce ideas off of us, ask questions, maybe even say, hey, like you guys should talk about this on the podcast or whatever it might be, there's a great way to do that. And that is joining our free Facebook group called The Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. So if you haven't jumped in there yet, make sure you do. Say hi, introduce yourself, and just take everything and run with it. So, with all that being said, thank you for listening today, and we'll catch you on the next episode next week.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.